Shalom everyone. Tisha B'Av is coming up. Tisha B'Av, the 9th day of Av, is of course the saddest day, the lowest point in the Jewish calendar. It's the day on which we commemorate the destruction of the first two temples that we had in our history. The first temple that was destroyed by the Babylonians, the second temple that was destroyed by the Romans. On this day we mourn them, we fast in order to remember them. But it's also a day of prayer and of longing for the building of the future third temple. And the idea, the vision is that this third temple will be eternal. It will not be destroyed. Why? Because it will be based on the lessons learned from the mistakes made during the first two temples. We should regard this whole long period of exile, almost 2,000 years since the destruction of the second temple, as a kind of long learning curve in which we're growing and evolving and learning and trying to learn from our own mistakes, and so that all this knowledge will be put into the third temple and it'll be able to stand and not fall down, not be destroyed like the first two temples. Now, in order to do that, we need to go back to the first two temples and ask why they were destroyed. What really caused them to be destroyed? Now, on the surface, this was not done by us. It was done by external forces. We had, like I said, the Babylonians who came in the first temple and destroyed it, and then we had the Romans who destroyed the second temple. But it's a very basic principle in Jewish thought and Jewish tradition that we don't really accuse those other nations of what happened. We say that really the truest reason is that it was caused by our own sins. They were only messengers sent by God to fulfill His will, and His will was that the temples will be destroyed, and this was because we were misbehaving. We were not doing what we were supposed to be doing. We were not connected to our root. We were disconnected from our own essence, from our own calling, and so really we brought about the destruction of the temples. So what were the reasons behind the destruction of each temple? So the tradition says that in the first temple, the reason was that Jews were transgressing regarding the three cardinal sins of Judaism. There are three cardinal sins. What are they? The first is murder. The second is improper, forbidden sexual acts. And the third is idolatry. These are the three cardinal sins that if someone tells you that you should commit one of those acts, or they're going to kill you, you need to prefer to be killed rather than to do those acts. That's how serious they are. And unfortunately, during the time of the first temple, they were widespread. There was both murder and idolatry and the commitment of forbidden sexual acts. So that caused the destruction of the first temple, and we were sent to the Babylonian diaspora, which lasted 70 years. Now, before I tell you the reason for the destruction of the second temple, we have to add an element here. When the Jewish people came back to the land of Israel from the Babylonian exile, and they were about to begin building the second temple, they had a problem. They said one of the three inclinations, the three urges or desires behind those sins, the desire for idolatry, they said that Satan, that particular urge or desire, is still dancing in our midst. It's still around. It's still within us. If we're going to build the second temple, but we'll continue worshipping false idols, it'll just be destroyed again. Now, what happened was that they were able to overcome this desire and to get rid of idolatry, and they built the second temple, and it lasted for centuries, and we didn't go back to the three cardinal sins. It was okay, but there was another problem, a fourth reason, something else that happened, even in some senses, in a more profound way, worse than the other three. There was something called Sinat Chinam. Sinat Chinam is baseless hatred. There was baseless, unfounded hatred between Jews. We broke into factions, into groups, and we couldn't stand one another. There was infighting, there was enmity, and it was this inner fighting that caused the destruction of the second temple. And we can say that in our generation now, we are now in a journey, in a process of returning to the land of Israel. Almost half the Jewish people have already gathered in the land of Israel, and there's talk about this. Maybe this is the beginning of the time of redemption. And we should say, but the Satan, the evil inclination, the urge, that caused the destruction of the previous temple, the second temple, that baseless hatred, that Satan is still dancing in our midst. We can say the same thing that they said. We haven't gotten rid of it. Jews are still fighting one another, and there's still this enmity, and there's still this division into groups. And either one group cannot understand the other group and even hates the other group. So we can build a third temple. If we don't solve this problem, nothing is going to change. So that in many ways is the biggest challenge, and has been the challenge for a long time, and is the biggest challenge of our generation. How do we rectify sinat chinam, baseless hatred? Well, the answer is Ahavat Chinam, baseless love. Just like you have senseless acts of violence, we need senseless acts of kindness. Things that will be able to rectify once and for all this plague, or this virus that is haunting us of senseless hatred. In a very profound way, the whole story of the month of Av is the story of trying to find and rebuild that lost love. Even the name Av itself, the name of the month, Av, the two letters Aleph Bet, are the two-letter root of the word Ahava, the word love. The word love can be seen as an extension, as the word Av sort of growing. And if you go over the dates that are associated, the main dates of the month of Av, they're all connected to this topic. The first day of Av is the Yortzeit, the day of the passing away of Aharon HaKohen, Aaron the priest. And we know of him that he was a lover of peace, a pursuer of peace, someone who loved his fellow human beings and who brought them closer to the Torah. The fact that he first loved them and then brought them closer to the Torah means that he loved them unconditionally. He loved them even when they were not observant, where they were not learning Torah or observing the commandments. He loved them anyway, and through loving them, he was able to bring them close to the Torah. So that's the first day, sort of ushering in the month of Av. Then we have the 9th day of Av, which is the destruction of the second temple because of the baseless hatred, the lack of love. And then 6 days after Tisha B'Av, we have the 15th day of Av, Tu B'Av. When the moon is full, we celebrate a day of matchmaking, of marriage, of love that's found and that's built. And so the whole month can be seen as revolving around the topic, the idea of rebuilding the home, the lost home, the home that was destroyed, rebuilding it this time based on love, because it was the lack of love that brought the downfall of our home, and we want to rebuild the home, starting with the spirit of Aharon, continuing with mourning the previous homes that were lost, and culminating in the full moon day in the celebration of the 15th day of Av and the concept, the vision of matchmaking. Now we want to get to the main event, the main idea. I want to open up this in this class. The Rebbe Rayas, the 6th Rebbe of Chabad, he said something very incredible that we want to really go into. He said that in Judaism, we have 3 main loves, 3 main objects of love, things that we need to love with all of our hearts, and and all 3 are very much interconnected and intertwined. So the first is the love of God. The love of God, we need to love our God with all of our heart, with all of our soul, with all of our might. And God created us. That's the first love that's very basic to Judaism, Ahavat Hashem, the love of God. Second love is the love of the Torah. Because in Judaism, we don't just learn the Torah, we don't just observe the Torah. Anyone who's connected to the Torah knows that the Torah is a book that you love. You love learning it, you love discovering more and more of its infinite secrets. And so we have the second type of love is Ahavat Torah. And what is the final and third love? This is the love we've been discussing. It's the Ahavat Israel, the love of Israel. That is the love of our fellow Jews. When we talk about Ahavat Israel, we're talking specifically about loving other Jews, but we can extend that, if we can move gradually outward, and we can extend that to the love of all our fellow human beings, just as Aharon HaKohen, Aaron, was said to have been Ohevet HaBriot, the lover of all human beings, of his fellow human beings. But in a way, the test or the stage you have to go through before you love all of mankind is, can you love your own extended family, the Jewish people? It starts with that before we can talk about, loving everyone equally. So these are the 3 types of love that the Rebbe Rath said are essential to the Jewish life, Jewish faith. The love of God, the love of Torah, and Ahavat Israel, the love of fellow Jews. And he said that these 3 loves are really one essence. They're one and the same. It's this one basic feeling of love that then is channeled in these three directions. But he said more than that. He said that these three loves are inter-included. Inter-included, that's a very basic concept in Kabbalah and Chassidut, means that when you have a set of few things, like three things in this instance, each one contains elements of the other two. That is, within the love of God, there has to be inter-included an element of loving the Torah and of loving our fellow Jews. Within the love of the Torah, we also have to inter-include the love of God and the love of fellow Jews, and same goes for Ahavat Israel. And this is what we want to explore now. The idea is that there are groups in the Jewish people. There are different types of people. Some of them really love God, but they're not so much connected to the other two things. Some of them love the Torah, but they're not so much connected to the other two things. But here the idea is that each one of the loves is incomplete without the other two. And we want to now go into each one of them, and we want to really see how when it stands on its own and it's not connected to the other two, something very profound is missing. And this would really help us sort of map out not just what it means to be Jewish and to serve God in the Jewish way and to, really put our heart and soul into these loves. It would also explain to us why, when we're just going with one of them and not with the other two, something very profound is lacking, is missing. Okay, so let's first imagine someone who loves God very much, but doesn't necessarily have a particular love for the Torah, for the Jewish religion, and for Ahavat Israel, the love of his fellow human being. So this person is what we would call the spiritual type. He believes in God, he feels connected to God, maybe he's talking to God all day, he feels that God is something universal and cosmic and is present everywhere, but he doesn't really connect to the idea that this love needs to be connected to a particular religion, right? To the Torah. The Torah is commandments, and the Torah is all these particular stories and ideas, and God is maybe bigger than that. God is universal, and God is above all the religions. Maybe he doesn't like any religion. And also, he says, why should I feel a greater affinity to my own people? We're all human beings. We're all created by God. We're all part of this cosmic harmony. And I don't feel that I need to be connected to this particular family of souls just because I was born to that ethnicity, right? Now, the problem with this kind of love of God is that it's light without vessels. It's light without vessels because if you just love God as this very vague, universal, abstract entity, it doesn't translate into any kind of commitment. It's like someone who says to a girl, I love you so much, but I don't want to marry you. I don't want to commit. So what kind of love is that? It's a love that doesn't stand the test of real commitment. You have to, what we call, put your money where your mouth is. And to put your money in something means to commit to it and to really go with it, not just to talk about it, but to actually do it. And so when we include the Torah into the love of God, this creates the vessel for the light of the love of God. Now the love of God can move from being something very sort of abstract into something real that has to be manifested in particular actions, in learning something, in trying also to understand the profound infinite wisdom of God. You can believe that God is infinite, but only when you start to learn the Torah can you really see that his infinite wisdom, it becomes something concrete. You learn something and there's more to be learned and more to be learned. And in a way, you don't even know God when you just believe in God without adding the element of the Torah. It's in many ways, it's only in your head. You're faced with the unknowability of God and with the infinite nature of God only when you start learning the Torah. And we know that God said of the Torah that the Torah embodies his own essence. That's the first word of the Ten Commandments, Anochi, right? Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am Hashem your God. The word Anochi was seen as the initials of the phrase Ana Nafshi Katvit Yahavit. I wrote myself into this text. I put myself into it. So if you want to know me, you need to learn my Torah. Something very similar exists also when you love God and even you love the Torah, but it's not connected to Ahavat Israel. Ahavat Israel is nowhere to be found. That is also a deficiency within the love of God itself. Why? Because God chose the Jewish people, and God believes in all Jews, believes in the Jewish souls. And if you say, I love God, but I don't love his people so much, his nation so much, and you don't force yourself to see the divine spark, the divine soul of other Jews, then the love of God itself is lacking. The Alter Rebbe, first Rebbe of Chabad, he famously said, he was asked, what is greater, the love of God or Ahavat Israel, the love of fellow Jews? And he said, Ahavat Israel. They told him, how can you say that? God created everything, and the Jewish people are just created beings. And he said, yes, but the ultimate object, the ultimate purpose of loving someone, is that you're able to love what they love. When you love your spouse, the test of loving your spouse is you're able to love what they love, even if you didn't love it yourself so much. You see the world through their eyes. And so the ultimate purpose or the ultimate goal of loving God is you're able to love whom God loves, which is other Jews. So you're able to look at them favorably. And in a way, this extends and puts to the test the love of God. So the love of God in and of itself, without the love of Torah, without the love of Israel, is incomplete. And it needs the other two to provide the vessels for this. Now let's imagine someone who loves the Torah very much, studies the Torah all day, and loves learning it, and goes into studies the Talmud, studies the stories. But in a way, it's disconnected from God. He doesn't feel close to God. He doesn't feel that God is so much present in their life. They love the Torah. The Torah is a great, something. It's a great intellectual endeavor and challenge. But they don't feel God's presence so much. And also, it could be, and it happens, that you all day you're into Torah and you can forget about other Jews. And all of a sudden you don't see them, you don't meet them, and you're alienated in relation to your fellow Jews. So here again, once again, the love of Torah itself is incomplete without inter-including the other two. So first, inter-including God. One of the explanations for the destruction of the temples, I said the famous ones, but there's another one. It says that the temple was destroyed because when the Jews started reading from the Torah in synagogue, they stopped saying the blessing you say before reading the Torah. Before reading the Torah, you bless Baruch atah Hashem noten haTorah, the giver of the Torah. Meaning, you want to remind yourself that this isn't just some intellectual puzzle or challenge. This is God speaking to you through the Torah. And so if you learn the Torah, but you don't really feel that this is God speaking to you, in a way, this is empty. So getting a sense that the Torah is God's words, that God is present in my life through the Torah, is something that is vital to learning Torah. There was a famous Hassidic Rebbe who told his assistant, his helper, he told him, whenever you see me too much immersed in a Torah topic, in a Torah subject, but you feel that I forgot the giver of the Torah, that I don't feel God's presence in the study, then, shake my hand, shake my arm, just to remind me. Because the goal was that the Torah cannot be disconnected from God. And if you learn it, and it's just one big, logical puzzle, and it's a big challenge, but you don't feel God's presence, then again, the love of Torah is deficient. And the same goes for love of Torah without connecting it to loving other Jews. The sages say that if someone says, En li ela Torah, I have nothing but the Torah, I just want to study Torah all day, then afilu Torah en lo. Even the Torah he doesn't have. Why? Because if you only say, I just want the Torah, I want nothing but the Torah, it means you're not dedicating time to also do gmilut chasadim, acts of kindness to other Jews. You need to, every once in a while, close your book, get out of the house of study, and be connected to your fellow Jews and help them. And the Torah itself that you're studying becomes empty and becomes void of meaning if it doesn't lead you and encourage you to translate that study into action. And that action means connecting to other Jews, other people, and helping them and making their lives better. So the love of Torah itself, without being inter-included with the love of God, the giver of the Torah, and the love of our fellow Jews, that it was for the sake of helping them that we are learning all this Torah, that is, again, it's incomplete and it's not whole. Finally, thirdly, what does it look like when someone has Ahavat Israel, has the love of Israel, that is someone with their Jewish identity is very strong, they feel connected to other Jews, they do good things for other Jews, they really help, they're really committed, they have this camaraderie, a strong sense of identity, but they say, but we don't believe in God, and we don't believe in the Torah. You can be a Jew without believing in God. You can be a Jew without practicing the Torah. So we're not connected to that, but we are very much connected. We have Ahavat Israel, and we're proud Jews, and we're connected to the other Jews, and we help them. So once again, something here is missing. It's great that you have Ahavat Israel. It's wonderful. But if you love another Jew, it's not just loving them. You need to love them, but also to remember that they have a godly soul. If you just love them without having the divine element present in the picture, then in a way, this love is based, and this help that you're giving them is based on the lowest common denominator. You're helping them on a physical level. You're helping them, they should have food, they should have something to wear, they should have where to live, they should have safety, they should have entertainment, all kinds of things you can give them. But if you're not addressing, and you don't have this goal in your mind that you want to also awaken their godly soul and remind them that they were created by God, connected to God, then even that love that you love them and the good things that you do for them, something is very missing here because you're not connecting them to their higher selves. And the same goes for the Torah. It's true that a Jew is a Jew even if they don't observe the Torah. And Aharon HaKohen, Aaron the priest, so said that he loved everyone, the Jews and non-Jews, he loved everyone. But then the very next thing that is told is that umekarvan la Torah, and then he brought them closer to the Torah. So he did love them unconditionally, but he also said, if good is good, isn't better better? If it's wonderful that you're such a great person, that's great. But now I want you to even better. I want you to be even better. I want to connect you to the Torah, because then you will be living a life that's fuller, that's richer, that you'll be able to bring out of yourself more, and you'll be able to connect it to this amazing, eternal, godly, divine wisdom. So in a way, if you just love everyone as they are and you accept them, that's wonderful, it's great. But a fuller love, a fuller chesed, a fuller kind of loving kindness that you can bestow upon them, they can give them, is if you also help them reconnect with the Torah and grow into the Torah and help the Torah be connected to them. So just like with the other two, if the Ahavat Yisrael, the love of Israel, and which again can be extended to love of fellow human beings, is without remembering their godly soul. And in the case of, we're talking about everyone in the world, everyone has a divine spark. Their divine spark should be awakened, their connection to the God of Israel, the God of the Torah. Without this, something is very much missing. It's you love other people, but you love them based on the existing version of who they are, not the higher, godly version, the one that's enlightened by God and guided by God. And same goes for the Torah. You want to see, you love people, but you love other Jews, but you should strive and encourage them or aim that they would live an even fuller and better and higher life, inspired and guided by the Torah. So now that was the main idea I wanted to bring forth. Just before I leave, I want to add two things. One is that the Rebbe Rath added in another occasion that there's actually a fourth kind of love, which should be also included, put into the mix, and that is the love of Eretz Israel, the love of the land of Israel. So now I leave you to think for yourself, what does that mean? That you can have the love of the land of Israel without the other three, and what it can contribute to the other three, and what the other three can contribute to it. So that's your homework, if you will. Now the final thing I have to say is that in a very profound way, all of this, everything that I taught now, ultimately it all boils down to Ahavat Israel. Why? Because if you look at the Jewish people today, it's very clearly divided into groups that have one particular love, but not so much connected to the other loves. You can see a subset of people that love God, are very spiritual, but are disconnected from Torah and from the Jewish people. You can see another group that loves the Torah, is dedicated to the Torah. The Torah is all their life. It's all they talk about, the Torah. But unfortunately, they've forgotten about God, the giver of the Torah, and they're also alienated themselves from other Jews, God forbid. And then there's also the people, again, a large subset of people who love Jews, who are connected to other Jews, but they don't see why this should be inter-included, connected with the love of God and the love of the Torah. And so when we're talking about doing this inter-inclusion, we're also talking about bringing these groups together, binding them together, and putting them in a relationship in which each one has something to learn from the others and something to also teach the others. We should really strive, right? Putting together the three loves is putting together the Jewish people itself, the different parts, the different tribes, if you will, of the Jewish people, and they should really come together. So, Be'ezrat Hashem, may we merit to all of us together, all Jews, all types, with all different loves, meet together in the third Beit HaMikdash, in a rectified world of true redemption and true love. Be'ezrat Hashem. Hi everyone, if you enjoyed this episode, please press like, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. If you want more English language videos from me, please consider becoming a supporter via Patreon. You can find the link in the description below. Thank you very much, and see you in the next episode.